Mary Poppins, 1964, is one of the most beloved musicals in cinematic history, a magical blend of whimsy, music, and unforgettable performances that captured the hearts of millions. But behind the cheerful songs and enchanting scenes lies a more somber truth. Many of the talented actors who brought this classic to life have since passed away, some after long and celebrated careers, others following quieter paths marked by personal tragedy, illness, or heartache. In this special tribute, we take a closer look at the stars of Mary Poppins who have tragically died, honoring their contributions to film history while shedding light on the real-life struggles and poignant endings behind the magic. David Tomlinson was born on May 7, 1917, in Henley-on-Thames, Oxfordshire, England. In Mary Poppins, 1964, he played the role of Mr. George Banks at age 47, the stern, traditional British father who undergoes a heartwarming transformation. His performance became iconic for its mix of comedic frustration and ultimate redemption, especially in scenes where he grapples with the chaos Mary Poppins brings into his neatly ordered household. Behind the cheerful Disney image, however, Tomlinson carried a heartbreaking personal tragedy. In 1943, during his early RAF service, his wife, Mary Lindsay Hidding, along with her 2 young sons from a previous marriage, died in a murder-suicide when she jumped from a New York hotel window. The trauma from this event left Tomlinson emotionally scarred for life, though he rarely discussed it publicly. After the war, he remarried and had 4 children, finding some semblance of peace in family life. Despite his affable screen persona, Tomlinson was known to be meticulous and sometimes controlling on set. Colleagues described him as professional but rigid, often demanding that scripts be rewritten to better fit his comedic timing. Although beloved for roles in other Disney films like Bedknobs and Broomsticks and The Love Bug, his career declined in the late 1970s when he struggled to adapt to newer, grittier British films and television. His retirement from acting in 1980 was quiet, and he largely withdrew from public life. He suffered from declining health in the 1990s and died on June 24, 2000, in Buckinghamshire, England, from a stroke at age 83. At the time of his death, his estate was estimated to be worth around $1.5 million, composed mainly of investments, residuals, and inherited property. Despite the cheery roles he played, Tomlinson's life was marked by silent grief and a desire for privacy, a contrast to the jovial characters he immortalized. Glennie Johns was born on October 5, 1923, in Pretoria, South Africa, to a musical and theatrical family. She starred in Mary Poppins, 1964, as Mrs. Winifred Banks, a delightfully quirky and distracted suffragette mother at the age of 41. Her performance was a comedic gem. Her fluttery demeanor and rousing rendition of Sister Suffragette offered a counterpoint to her husband's uptight character, blending charm and political satire. Johns had a uniquely breathy, mezzo-soprano singing voice, which the Sherman brothers specifically composed for, ensuring her song matched her vocal range. Her real-life persona, however, was far more assertive and occasionally combative than her character. Known for her sharp wit and impatience with incompetence, Johns reportedly clashed with Walt Disney himself over script rewrites and her role's importance. A fiercely independent woman, she was married 4 times, each union ending in divorce. Her only child, actor Gareth Forwood, had a strained relationship with her, especially in his adult years, due in part to her demanding and perfectionist nature. Throughout her career, Johns was accused of being difficult to work with, often walking off sets if she felt disrespected or underutilized. She suffered bouts of depression and anxiety in the 1980s and 1990s and largely disappeared from public life in her later years. Despite being considered a screen legend in Britain, Johns never quite reached Hollywood's A-list, partly due to her refusal to conform to studio expectations. She continued performing on stage into her 70s and made her final screen appearance in the late 1990s. Glennie Johns died on January 4, 2024, in Los Angeles at the age of 100 from natural causes, having outlived nearly all of her co-stars. Her estate, including real estate in London and royalties from both film and theatrical works, was valued at roughly $5 million. Though remembered fondly for her whimsical performance in Mary Poppins, Johns' life was one of struggle between artistic integrity, emotional isolation, and the often unyielding pressure of public expectation. Elsa Lchester was born on October 28, 1902, and portrayed Katie Nana in Mary Poppins in 1964 at the age of 62. Though on screen for only a brief time, her fierce storming out of the bank's home set the tone for Mary Poppins' magical arrival. Lchester's commanding presence and biting wit made her memorable even in minor roles, but her personal life was far more scandalous than Disney ever let slip. Raised by anarchist parents in bohemian squalor, Elsa was encouraged to rebel from a young age, posing nude in art classes at 13 and joining radical socialist theater troupes by 15. Her marriage to Charles Laughton was more arrangement than romance. Laughton was gay, and their union, though enduring, was fraught with emotional distance and whispered affairs on both sides. Lchester herself had multiple secret lovers, including women, facts she thinly veiled in her scandalous 1983 memoir. On film sets, she was notorious for her vulgar jokes and drinking, once reportedly calling Walt Disney a prude with too much money. During the production of Mary Poppins, she clashed with Disney staff over her costuming, insisting it was too sterile for her taste. Though beloved by fans of horror and theater, Lchester was quietly blacklisted from some studios in the 50s for her outspoken views and suspected communist ties. She spent her final years alone in Los Angeles, living in a house filled with memorabilia and memories of a bygone era. Elsa died on December 26, 1986, from bronchopneumonia at age 84. Her estate, primarily comprised of royalties, film memorabilia, and property, was valued at around $3 million, passed on to nephews and distant relatives. Today, her legacy is one of brilliant eccentricity, a woman too wild for the system and too fierce to be forgotten. Hermione Batley was born on November 13, 1906, and played the sharp-tongued maid Ellen in Mary Poppins in 1964 at the age of 58. While her screen presence was filled with comic relief and sass, behind the scenes Hermione was no less flamboyant. She turned the role of a supporting maid into a standout character, stealing scenes with her timing and attitude. Audiences adored Ellen's brash, chatty nature, but few knew that Batley herself lived a life even more colorful than the film she appeared in. Her early years were shaped by emotional distance and privilege twisted with neglect. She was raised in a disjointed British family that valued appearances over affection. Sent to boarding school at an early age, she often joked that she learned more about liquor than Latin. Her rise in the industry was not smooth. While she gained recognition for her brassy stage roles, she was frequently passed over for leading parts due to her common accent and loud personality, as one casting director famously described. Her infamous partying earned her both admiration and isolation in professional circles. Tales of nude dips in her manners pond and scandalous liaisons with married men, including a rumored long affair with a notable conservative politician, were whispered about but never confirmed. Her most public career embarrassment came in the form of a forgotten line on live television that ended in a chaotic improvisation and an abrupt firing. Her personal life was equally stormy. Her marriage to David Tennant, a baronet, not the actor, ended in disaster after her chronic infidelities surfaced. She was known to flirt with both men and women freely, challenging norms long before it was accepted. In her later years, Batley struggled with loneliness, financial mismanagement, and declining health. She died on August 19, 1986, in Los Angeles at age 79 from complications following several strokes. Though her net worth was estimated around $1 million, much of it came from late-stage royalties and property sales. Today, she's remembered as a woman who defied conventions, lived scandalously, and left a vivid mark both on and off the screen. Matthew Adam Garber was born on March 25, 1956, and played Michael Banks in Mary Poppins in 1964 at the age of just 8. His portrayal of the cheeky, wide-eyed younger Banks child captivated audiences, giving Disney's magical nanny tale a boyish, rebellious spark that made the film's whimsical moments feel rooted in real childhood mischief. But what the public didn't know was that Garber, even at a young age, was a daredevil with an alarming disregard for rules. Known for leaping from heights on set and instigating pranks that terrified studio staff, Matthew earned a reputation as unmanageable. Behind the scenes, Disney reportedly limited his press access due to fears he'd say something inappropriate. His early life was marked by emotional distance. His parents, both actors, prioritized stage commitments over parenting. Raised by nannies and shuttled between rehearsals, Matthew developed early symptoms of anxiety and recklessness that were brushed off as boyish charm. His post-Mary Poppins career never took off. Studios avoided hiring him, citing his unpredictable behavior and lack of discipline, with one casting director calling him brilliant but dangerous. He dropped out of school in his late teens, and during a 1976 trip to India, contracted hepatitis. Too stubborn to seek help, he delayed treatment until the illness had progressed into hemorrhagic pancreatitis. He died on June 13, 1977 in London, England, at only 21 years old. His sudden death devastated Karen Detrice, his former co-star, who admitted she had long lost contact due to his wild streak. Garber never married, had no children, and left behind no will. His estate was almost non-existent, estimated at less than $10,000, mostly in unpaid child actor royalties. Disney posthumously honored him in 2004, but by then, the boy who had once embodied childhood wonder had become a cautionary tale lost to time. Rita Shaw was born on September 13, 1912, and stepped into the role of Mrs. Brill in Mary Poppins in 1964 at the age of 52. As the Banks family's gruff and bossy cook, she channeled a no-nonsense spirit that audiences quickly warmed to, yet her real-life persona was even more enigmatic. While she never made headlines with outrageous behavior, those who worked with her often spoke in hushed tones about her unpredictability. Raised in a household obsessed with the occult, Shaw claimed she could see energies as a child and regularly held seances into adulthood. Her early years were marked by a tense relationship with a domineering father who forbade her from speaking at the dinner table. She later confessed in private letters that her first taste of empowerment came not on stage, but while using a Ouija board to channel the confidence she lacked. Though she built a successful career in theater and television, she often struggled to escape being typecast. Her biting wit earned her many laughs but alienated her from certain directors, one of whom publicly called her a nightmare in an apron. She was fired from a Broadway production in 1957 after a backstage outburst involving thrown soup and a 3-day silence that followed. Shaw's personal life was just as fractured. Her only marriage ended after 5 years, and she kept her daughter's name hidden from public records after a custody battle that involved allegations of emotional abuse. She never remarried and often joked bitterly that the only man who stayed was the milkman. As she aged, Shaw's health declined rapidly due to years of chain smoking, and she developed severe emphysema. She died on January 8, 1982, in Encino, California, at the age of 69. Despite a long career in entertainment, her net worth remained under $1 million, much of it absorbed by medical bills and a quiet life lived out of the limelight. Arthur Treacher was born on July 23, 1894, and portrayed Constable Jones in Mary Poppins, 1964, at the age of 70. As the tall, dignified policeman embodying traditional British order, his presence brought a sense of calm to the whimsical chaos of Cherry Tree Lane. Treacher's character served as a humorous anchor, reacting to the Banks children's adventures with a bewildered charm that won over audiences. But behind the mustache and uniform was a man whose own life was far more complicated. Raised in Brighton in a rigidly class-divided England, Arthur endured a joyless childhood under an emotionally distant father who believed the theater was a wasteful profession. That rejection fueled a lifelong need for validation, which he sought through strict professionalism and an obsession with status. Although he played butlers and valets, Treacher was infamous off-screen for looking down on actual service staff and younger actors. believing many in Hollywood lacked the proper British refinement. His biggest personal and professional scandal involved his bitter fallout with producers of The Merv Griffin Show. He refused to move to Los Angeles when the show relocated in 1970, leading to his abrupt exit. Treacher, a known control freak, claimed health concerns, but insiders suggested the real reason was his unwillingness to take direction and share the spotlight. He never married, and there were quiet whispers among industry insiders about his lifelong bachelorhood and strange companionships, though he deflected all speculation with biting humor. His later years were spent in semi-retirement, supported by his image licensing deal with Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips, a business he fronted but reportedly had no real equity in. Despite the public's belief he was a wealthy businessman, he earned mostly from endorsements and small royalties. He died on December 14, 1975, at the age of 81 from cardiovascular disease in Manhasset, New York. His net worth was estimated at around $2 million, largely from a lifetime of supporting roles and his television appearances. Ed Wyn, born Isaiah Edwin Leopold on November 9, 1886, played the gravity-defying Uncle Albert in Mary Poppins in 1964 at the age of 78. His portrayal of the jolly uncle who literally floated from laughter was iconic, endearing, surreal, and unforgettable. But while audiences chuckled, Wyn's life behind the curtain was marked by anxiety, crippling insecurity, and devastating personal failures. Raised in a strict Orthodox Jewish family in Philadelphia, Wyn fled home as a teenager to avoid the rabbinical path chosen for him. His early years in vaudeville were filled with rejection, financial hardship, and brutal ridicule from critics who mocked his voice in effeminate stage persona. Though he later became a pioneer of radio and early television, his attempt to launch a national radio network in the 1930s ended in financial disaster. The collapse led to bankruptcy and a nervous breakdown that forced him into electroshock therapy, a fact buried for decades by his publicists. He was married and divorced 3 times, with one ex-wife accusing him of emotional manipulation and neglect. His relationship with his son, actor Keenan Wyn, was often strained. They acted together but barely spoke off camera during one of their final film shoots. Perhaps his most crushing failure came in the early 1950s when he was fired from a dramatic television role for freezing on set, a humiliation that almost ended his career. In his final years, he was riddled with fear over being forgotten and obsessed with legacy, even bribing agents to land roles far beneath his talent. He died on June 19, 1966, in Beverly Hills at age 79 from esophageal cancer, alone in a rented apartment surrounded by faded photos and unpaid bills. Despite decades in show business, he left behind an estate worth roughly $1 million, largely tied to residuals and a small trust set up by his son. His posthumous recognition as a Disney legend did little to erase the ghosts of anxiety, financial ruin, and bitter regrets that shadowed his last years. A tragic ending for a man whose public image was built on joy and laughter. Reginald Owen was born on August 5, 1887, and played Admiral Boom in Mary Poppins, 1964, at age 77, portraying the cannon-firing naval eccentric with explosive enthusiasm and rigid British bravado. The character, perched on his rooftop, shouting nautical orders, became a scene-stealing symbol of tradition lost in time. But Owen's real life was a complicated performance of its own. Born in Wheat Hampstead to a Victorian-era Anglican family, Reginald's childhood was filled with cold formality, expectations, and silence. His mother reportedly referred to emotions as unnecessary displays. Seeking escape, he ran away from boarding school to join a repertory theater, causing a family scandal. Though his early career thrived in London, Owen was blacklisted by certain UK stage producers in the 1930s due to rumored affairs with married actresses and whispered accusations of being too controlling. Backstage. After relocating to the US, his on-set behavior in Hollywood grew increasingly erratic. He once demanded script rewrites on the Dr. Watson set because he disliked how ordinary the character felt. The most infamous event of his later years came when he rented his Bel Air mansion to the Beatles in 1964, despite disapproving of their music. Neighbors accused him of selling out, and the resulting media storm tarnished his upright image. Though he married once in his youth, it ended quickly, and his romantic life thereafter remained shrouded in mystery. Several Hollywood insiders later alleged he lived discreetly as a closeted bisexual man during a period when such revelations could destroy careers. His health declined in the late 60s, yet he continued appearing on TV until his death from a heart attack on November 5, 1972, in Boise, Idaho. At the time, his estate was valued at approximately $1.5 million, including his Bel Air property and extensive art collection. Robert Bonas was born on September 22, 1933, and appeared as one of the chimney sweeps in Mary Poppins in 1964 at age 31, energetically leaping alongside Dick Van Dyke in the legendary rooftop dance sequence. His magnetic performance helped cement the Step in Time number as one of the most iconic dance scenes in musical history. But Bonas's real-life story wasn't nearly as polished. Behind the dazzling smile and quick-footed grace was a man often sidelined by Hollywood's underbelly. Underpaid, undercredited, and battling for respect in a system that prized faces over choreography. Though celebrated for his viral performance of The Nitty Gritty on The Judy Garland Show, Bonas was known in the industry as difficult, a perfectionist who berated producers, accused colleagues of stealing his steps, and once walked off a set after being denied choreographer credit. One of his most infamous clashes came during a 1972 TV special, when he physically removed a backup dancer mid-rehearsal for mimicking his moves. His personal life was marked by volatility. A brief marriage ended in bitterness, and insiders whispered that he lived for years estranged from his only child. Friends noted his growing paranoia in his later years, obsessively monitoring YouTube for dance plagiarism and sending cease-and-desist letters to young choreographers. Despite his clear talent, Bonas never broke into major studio choreography, a failure he blamed on a conspiracy of smiling thieves. He died of pneumonia on July 29, 2024, in Encino, California, at age 90, largely forgotten by the Hollywood elite he once battled. His estate included memorabilia, vintage film reels, and a modest condo, his net worth estimated at under $1 million. Though never a household name, Bonas left behind a legacy both dazzling and troubled, one rooted in brilliance and bitterness. Arthur Malay, born Vivian. Arthur Rivers Malay on September 24, 1927, in Lea-on-the-Solent, Hampshire, England, was a British-born American actor best known for portraying quirky, elderly gentlemen long before he actually was one. In Disney's Mary Poppins, 1964, Malay played Mr. Dawes Jr., the straight-laced bank executive who, along with his father, comes to represent the joyless rigidity of the financial world. Malay was only 37 years old at the time of filming, yet convincingly portrayed a much older man, a testament to his skill in playing eccentric elder roles. He immigrated to the United States as a young man and began acting in theater before transitioning into television and film in the 1950s. Malay gained a cult following for his appearances in films such as Young Frankenstein, 1974, Halloween, 1978, The Secret of NIMH, 1982, and Steven Spielberg's Hook, 1991, where he played Toodles. Though frequently seen in supporting roles, his performances were memorable for their emotional sincerity and whimsical oddity. He was known for being intensely private, rarely giving interviews, and reportedly never married nor had children. Despite a career spanning more than 4 decades, Malay lived modestly and never achieved great financial success. His net worth at the time of his passing was estimated to be under $1 million. Arthur Malay died on May 18, 2013, in Santa Monica, California, at the age of 85. The cause of death was not publicly disclosed, but he had reportedly been living in a nursing facility in his later years. Though never a household name, Malay left behind a quiet legacy of dignified character work. his face familiar to generations of filmgoers who may never have known his name. Jane Darwell, born Patty Mary Woodard on October 15, 1879, took on the role of the Bird Woman in Mary Poppins in 1964 at age 85, after being coaxed out of retirement by Walt Disney himself. In a film full of spectacle, her role was brief but haunting. An elderly woman feeding birds on the cathedral steps, singing "Feed the Birds" with a depth that brought tears to the eyes of children and adults alike. Her character became the heart of the film, a quiet symbol of selfless love and forgotten humanity. But Jane Darwell's off-screen life was anything but gentle. Born into a wealthy Missouri family, she rebelled against her father's demands to become a concert pianist or nun, and instead joined traveling theater troupes under a fake name. Her early career was plagued by sexual harassment from studio executives, which she privately recorded in a decades-long collection of letters never published. Though she won an Oscar for The Grapes of Wrath, Hollywood quickly typecast her as the matronly figure. Roles that paid little and gave her no creative satisfaction. She never married and had no children, though rumors of a long-term relationship with a closeted female screenwriter circulated quietly among old Hollywood insiders. Her final years were marked by poverty and failing health. She lived in a small room at the Motion Picture Country home and spent her days rereading her own reviews. One of her darkest moments came when she discovered her name had been removed from the final credits of a major film she'd shot in 1958, an intentional snub after she clashed with the director. She died on August 13, 1967, at the age of 87 in Woodland Hills from heart failure, nearly blind and mostly forgotten by an industry she had once helped shape. Her estate, worth less than $1 million, included a single bank account, costume jewelry, and stacks of unpaid medical bills. In the end, Jane Darwell was a woman of profound grace, overshadowed by decades of quiet erasure and disappointment, a star who gave everything and received too little in return. Don Barkley was born on December 22, 1892, and played the bumbling Mr. Binnacle in Mary Poppins at the age of 72, assisting the bombastic Admiral Boom with military-like loyalty. With his crumpled hat and vacant stare, Barkley added comedic charm to the film's whimsical tone. Yet this aging sidekick had once been at the heart of a far more glamorous and morally ambiguous Hollywood. In the silent era, Barkley rubbed shoulders with legends, but few knew he had deep connections to some of the town's most controversial circles. As a known confidant of Clark Gable, Barkley was often present at wild after-parties that became the stuff of studio cover-ups. Rumors swirled about his detailed caricatures, not just of soldiers but of actors in compromising positions. Sketches that were said to have disappeared after certain blackmail rumors emerged. During World War II, he claimed to support the troops by drawing for them overseas, but FBI files from the period suggest he may have been investigated for transporting unauthorized material across borders. While never charged, insiders said he was quietly discouraged from working with the War Department afterward. His acting career faded, and by the time he joined Mary Poppins, he was living off modest residuals and working as a nightclub caricaturist. Barkley died on October 16, 1975 in Palm Springs, California, at 82. His will mentioned only a few possessions: sketchbooks, dusty reels, and a trunk of memorabilia from a forgotten era. His net worth, never formally disclosed, was believed to be modest, likely less than $50,000. Don Barkley's life was a fading sketch of old Hollywood, charming on the surface but drawn in secrecy, shadows, and buried truths. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from Mary Poppins who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.